So what I tend to do before I'm going to live stream is I turn off my computer and restart it, right? I try to, otherwise what's going to happen is, you know, if the computer has a lot of, say, apps up, it tends to weigh down on the actual live stream itself. That's what I've noticed. I've noticed if I have a lot of apps up, if my computer's overheating, if it's been on all day, maybe all night, I tend to turn it off before I live stream, so it kind of resets itself. And then I turn it back on before I'm actually going to do my stream, especially if I'm going to do, say, an hour long or hour and a half long of a live webinar. You know, if I'm doing a live webinar, I tend to try to turn it off, turn it back on, reboot it, just get it ready to go before I start it up again. And we don't have it here, but as I said, I like to use a second monitor when I'm doing my live stream. And the reason I like using it is just because it gives me more options of being able to take comments where they're at. So if I have, say, over here I have my presentation on this monitor, and over here I have Google Hangouts going on this monitor. So I can work on my presentation. I can also handle the chat over here, and I can kind of see both. And now you might be wondering, Casey, how do you do both of those at the same time? It's like juggling and patting your head, or, you know, how do you do both of those? And again, it's all about setting up expectation with your audience. If you tell them, hey, you know what? I'm going to go through the presentation, and then by the end, I'm going to take your comments as they come through. That way, they'll know to front load, as I call it, front loading their questions, where they put in their questions right ahead of time. And then later on in that presentation, that's when you start fielding those questions that are coming through. So let them know ahead of time that that's what's going to be happening, so you don't feel overwhelmed that you have to go back and forth every single time. And a lot of people make that mistake. They tend to start a hangout or a webinar, and they'll go back and do the questions, and there's a lot of dead time, you know, and they won't go back to their presentation. So what I tend to do is I like to have a pretty fluid process where I do my presentation, and then I say, okay, I gave you some gold nuggets. I leave them on a thought. I leave them at a place in my presentation where they can think now, right, about something that I just shared with them. And so the dead time is actually is them actually thinking, you know, and processing. So now I can go back to my comments and answer any questions as they come. That's what I tend to do. So I like that second monitor. Also, I can place, as I said, my camera right on that second monitor and just have it pointed down right at me. And that's what I like to use. Now, I will say this. Sometimes if you do have a second monitor, sometimes it will pull some of the bandwidth from Google Hangouts. And if that is the case, just let your audience know that. Tell them, you know, it is pulling a little bit more bandwidth than usual because my second monitor is plugged in. It's just weighing a bit more on my computer. And it's going to be dependent upon your computer, the model of your computer, how many gigs it has, the bandwidth that it has, things like that. So I would do some research if you're going to want to do that into what your computer can handle. Test it out, see what it can do with live Google Hangouts. Your computer might work way better than mine. You never know until you try it. So also another tip, and I already talked about this. I tend to not like to film going up my nose. I like to film coming down on an angle. So that's what it looks like when you're kind of going up your nose, and it's just really unattractive. So yeah, I definitely like a little bit of depth. I would always suggest also, you know, sort of removing the clutter as well. You know, don't have, you know, 4 coffee mugs in the background like I tend to do, you know, just a bunch of stuff. So, sort of create your space if you can. If you want to create your space, create your space. If you want to have that visual look, that branded look, you know, sort of do that. Okay. Of course, the biggest thing is to have fun with this stuff. Okay. Just think about the equipment that you need. The minimal equipment, the minimum viable equipment to get a studio up and running. But at the end of the day, it's you streaming out to the world, it's broadcasting your message, so you're going to want to have fun with it, which is the most important thing, just to be free and excited and happy to be there when you're on the camera, on screen, talking to the audience.